Hello and welcome to the Learning to Slay the Beast podcast, a resilience podcast where we talk about all the challenging things that we're working to overcome, like anxiety, obesity, health, and relationship issues. My name is Sarah. Continuing into our back to school series, this week we are talking with Anja Simmons, who's a parenting success coach. Anja Simmons is trained as a British nursery nurse and became a nanny in England, Switzerland, and Toronto. She then went on to have her own family and then moved into the direction of a parenting coach in order to be there for parents as someone they can fully trust, who can share in their struggles, support them, and offer them the advice that they need. She is also a certified yoga teacher in the Kripalu tradition. Again, as part of our back to school series, today we will be learning all about different yoga and breath works to help support our children during this back to school transition, but also ourselves as parents and setting a great example. Enjoy this conversation with Anja. So welcome, Anja Simmons, to the podcast. I'm really happy to connect with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So why don't we start with you providing a little bit about your background and then how you became interested in being a parenting success coach?
Okay, yeah. So I was actually, I'm from England. People probably can hear that. And I trained as a British nanny over in England. And that's how I actually ended up I was a nanny in Europe and then came to Canada. And was ready to parent when I, had found my husband and was excited to parent. And I really thought it was going to be easy because I'd really helped raise loads of other people's children. And I was in for a shock. One, I couldn't tap out at night, and get a full night's sleep. And two, the responsibility was fully on us, And so raising two kids, my guys are big now, 20 and 23.
Oh, wow.
And so, I think. Adults. How do you raise adults? Like, oh my goodness. So, then I became a yoga teacher. And so this was sort of the way that it unfolded. And the yoga journey for me was massive in changing the way I parented and supporting mothers to be this, catalyst, a profound change in mama's life just was a passion, and really sort of led me over to then being a parenting coach. And the idea of the success part is really just to help parents feel successful in their parenting.
That makes sense. And yeah, you can absolutely not feel successful at times.
Me too, many, many times, right? This idea of the assumption that we should just know how. And I had that assumption because I thought I do know how. I have done this many, many a time. And then it was so very different when it was my two. And, a lot of my rules and regulations that had come through the training just didn't really apply anymore. They didn't sit with my intuition and my gut. So that was sort of the transition for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I can totally see that it's very eye-opening, I think. It's one thing in theory and then definitely another in practice.
Absolutely.
That's great. And so, you're part of our back to school series. And as you know from your two children, back to school can be a really stressful time for children. And I'm wondering if you have ideas of what we can do to support them during that time.
Absolutely. I think that the pivotal part at the beginning for me was in becoming more conscious as a parent, and now definitely in my coaching, is this idea, okay, where are we coming from first? What's our energy? And noticing as mothers and fathers, what are our fears around this? Especially in the time that we're in, we can already be in the dialogue of the worst case scenarios and the fears of, what if they don't eat all their lunch, or if they don't make a friend, if they're not comfortable maybe with the mask. So we're already in a future planning stress mode, and that's what we can sometimes bring to the situation. And so for me, the first step is really checking our own energy and checking, okay, maybe I have all of this, but what can I do for myself so that I'm not projecting that on them? And for some, school is an exciting place to go. But for many, it's also this feeling of the unknown right? And so they don't know. And so they're going to feed off the environment we're all in if we're kind of stressing over it all, right? So for me, I think it's this, right? Yeah. It's this, once we've sort of checked our own plan and our own energy, and we can do that through, whatever works for us normally in our releasing, whether it be yoga or meditation, whether it be getting out for a run, going in nature, so that when we come into the room and when we're going to discuss about school, we're coming from more of a calmer place, more of a grounded. And I love this idea of like, in this moment, all is well. Okay, maybe not that moment, but in this moment, when we take a breath and we feel our feet, everything is well right now, right? And it's that mindfulness of coming from there. And then the next part is really, which was an aha for me in parenting myself, was, what, our kids are super wise. How about we ask them and bring them into the conversation rather than it all be on us and for us to decide the best way, so that we can be talking instead of saying, oh, how are you feeling about school? And oh, are you excited? Are you, and even neighbors and friends and family, they all put this on the children. And ultimately really is just another day, right? And then another day, and then another day, and so I like the idea that we sort of say, what do you need from me? What can I help you with? Right? Or maybe you would sort of have, tell me what you need, right? What do you think I can do to support you? Right. And then let the children have, a say in some of this. And, little ones aren't necessarily going to know the answer to those things. But it's just bringing them into the conversation as we figure it out. And then as far as yoga goes, there's lots of breath work and guided meditations that we can start to bring in as a way of transitioning into school, but also sort of starting to create sort of some habits of quiet time. Meditation does not mean the same to kids as it does to us. I taught kids for many years, and I taught them actually out of a hospital to do with anxiety. And the yoga portion that we had, the breath work was the key for many of them and made it very practical. So it's a bit hard on a podcast to explain it exactly, but there's breath work of just placing your hand on your chest and your hand on your belly. As soon as you're feeling nervous, as soon as you're up in your head and getting anxious, connect to your breath. And for kids and for adults, this great thought of like, okay, let's get out of our head for a second and into our body, because that's our intuition, right? That's the grounding place. If they're having trouble sleeping, right? Or if they're having trouble sort of just calming down at all for little ones. And actually this program was up to 13 that I was doing at the hospital. And they liked it too, that idea of a breathing buddy. And you have a little teddy or something, and you lie down and you place this teddy on your tummy. And you're going to just breathe in and breathe out into your belly and feel the teddy moving with you, right? And that goes straight into our nervous system. That goes right into this idea of I am safe. I am relaxed.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And so the kind of I am safe, I am relaxed, that's almost like a mantra in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And finding the ones that sort of different ones work for us, right, at different times, and the same for children. And there's also this lovely volcano breath, it's called. Well, we call it for the kids one. And it's this idea of 3 sharp inhales in the nose as your arms come up through the center. And then on the exhale, you take a big exhale and lower your arms out to the side. And we can do that with the concept of having something in our mind that's disturbing us, right? Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it's, you don't know if your friend's going to be in the same class as you. Maybe it's, you've just found out you're not getting the teacher you wanted. All those kind of things. And it's a great way of then integrating the body and the breath in releasing this out into the universe. I mean, you can do that 3 or 4 times. I have a great video for this. I'll let you have the link after of these breath work so that you can really sort of work with them. And I suggest there's, I think, about 5 or 6 on the video I have, but it's type them out, put them on the fridge, have them there so that you can sort of say, okay, wow, we're all kind of in each other's faces and niggly or angry. Let's go check a breath that we could do. As a way of really integrating it. And the breath work works for us too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, I like that too about printing it out. I do that. My daughter had some mindfulness exercises that were recommended for her. And so same thing, I kind of put them on her closet so that when she needs to do, the grounding exercise or something like that it's actually there. Or I used to have for my son, it was like a wind down corner, I called it. And so I had a little like a yoga poster there that just had some simple children's poses. But you're right. There's something about just seeing that visual cue on the wall that's like, oh yeah, I should be doing this. And you're right, parents too.
Yeah. I used to, even in workplaces, I'd go in the washroom and I'd do this version of a volcano breath just to kind of get it out of my body so that I can then think clearly, if you're feeling sort of overloaded with everything. And I know definitely for my son, when he was in school, he was super anxious and super sensitive to everything. So his anxiety would grow because he didn't know, right? He didn't know what's going on. He didn't know how to how is it going to be? Where's my classroom? Like there's a lot of anxiousness that we don't, as adults, we'd be like, well, it's not a big deal. You're going to find out, but it is a big deal to them, right? And so it's taking those things into consideration and giving them these breath tools. Or another one is a great one is this: feel your feet. As soon as you're stressing, feel your feet. Wiggle your toes. You can feel your socks. Can you feel your shoe around your foot? Can you feel your foot or your shoe on the ground? Right? It's just dropping out for a second from this busy monkey mind.
I like that. Yeah, it's almost a little bit similar to like a body scan, almost like a mini body scan meditation. That's a great idea. And yeah, my son is quite similar. Like I find he can get really caught up in that logistical stuff. Like, where's it going to be? How's it going to go? And he's going through a transition this year, like to a new school, a bigger school, all of that kind of stuff. I guess all of these would work. Is there anything else, that you kind of suggest in terms of children that are going through, maybe even into high school?
Yeah. I think we have to, it's so important that they know that actually it's going to be okay. Right. And also that they have to trust their own intuition, their own gut around things. I realize more now this idea of us leaning back and letting the experience be theirs actually gives them the sort of the encouragement and the confidence to know that, we're trusting that they can handle it. You can trust that. There's lots of obviously yoga movements and yoga poses that I'm an advocate of. I also have kids who want nothing to do with yoga or me telling them to breathe, right?
Right, yes, of course.
It has to be on their own, but I notice that if we do it, if they see a way that we sort of release that energy, like from big sighs to maybe even sort of taking a twist to kind of get the ribs a bit more open or a side stretch, and just speak about our own experience with those things. And the words, to really let them know, you've got this. You've got this. I think that's powerful stuff that we can't take away. I would love to completely cover especially my daughter now as a 20-year-old, cover her more in cotton wool and say, just stay with mummy. But, it's not real, right? It's not a real way. So I think also this idea of sharing a little bit without putting it on them, but sharing a little about your experience and what you do when you are in a new environment, a new job, and you have to make a phone call you don't want to make, and then there's this idea like, oh, it's not just me that's nervous about things, or the fact that, oh, my mum survived. She did something super scary and she's actually okay. Those are massive changes for them.
Yeah, it really I think normalizes it, right? Like when they can see oh, I'm not the only one that maybe feels worked up about this.
Yeah. And that it's okay, because I think we can tend to play it down and be like, oh no, it's not a big deal. You've been at the school before. Jimmy's going there too, or whatever. No, acknowledging, yeah, I can see, thanks for sharing that you're a little scared or a little upset. And, what can we do? What can I do to help? Does it help if I wake you up in the morning for the first week? Does it help if, you set the time that you're going to be in the washroom and we'll make sure we're all out? Just simple little things of guiding and respecting, the way they're going to move through this world.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of including them. And I find, even with my daughter, she's only 8, but like she'll kind of have these periods where all of a sudden she wants to come in and snuggle more, and stuff like that. And I just kind of will look at it and say, yeah, maybe she's feeling something now, and that's how she's expressing it. In maybe a different way than an older child who would say like, yeah, I'm feeling really stressed out or.
Yeah, right? No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's lovely, that she's feeling comfortable to do that. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'm sure it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I really even felt that I knew what emotion was coming up, or really, or could look at it really from a bigger picture. So our expectations of them when they're younger, is a little insane until we've managed it ourselves, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so with some of these techniques, like what would you suggest in terms of timing? Like, do we kind of get them to incorporate them in advance of school? Or is this something that you're like, okay, the week of, or even as they've returned, like do the techniques change or does it matter, I guess?
I think probably it would need to be revisited a few times after the first week or two of school because things might have changed, as to what's going on, what courses they sort of settled down a little more. But ideally would be, these are sort of life skills, right? That we're talking about the school time, but, there's going to be stress and things throughout our life. And so what can we do to, be supportive enough that these skills? So maybe some kids and people love to journal and to write things. Maybe there's ways of sort of saying, okay, you're finding it kind of tough. Where's the joy? Let's find some joy. And of course, gratitude. Gratitude is top list of everything for all ages, to really create this gratitude practice, because there is a tendency for many of us, and especially teens, I find, that you forget about the things that are good. Right. We focus on, all this awful stuff or what we're feeling is awful. And, if we cultivate sort of, tell me something good about your day and tell me what was the best part and what was the harder part, or, what are you grateful for? Let's look for gratitude out there. What can we be grateful for? And it's just a nice, because when you open up more to gratitude, I know this for myself and obviously experiences, but you see it more. They might see that, oh, you know what, the kid I don't even know smiled at me, or I sat with somebody different today, or somebody, seemed to laugh at something I said and it felt so good. We're just looking at places, or the teacher was more, I don't know, focused today on what we were doing, for those that like order, And so sort of finding ways to seek out joy, to seek out gratitude, and to seek out ways to play. That can all start now, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I agree, like, even those tiny little bits of gratitude, the littlest things sometimes can really change mindset for sure. And so we know that it's also back to school, a really crazy time for parents, like sort of flipping the coin, and teachers as well, right? Like all of a sudden we're thrust back into, new routines, new demands. If you're involved in the school at all, there's that kind of coming up, and then constantly like forms and reminders and homework. So I'm just wondering, how do you think would be best for adults, parents, to really prepare themselves for the return to school, and then, how to kind of best ease themselves into all of those new demands?
Yeah, there's a lot, isn't there? There's certainly a lot. And especially, with the new school and not knowing if you're fully back, right?
Yes.
Or if it's online.
Yeah.
And you're
Not even COVID.
yeah, exactly. And and the idea, some people like to be super organized and have their schedule, and then you have no choice but to go with the flow because it's all changing constantly, especially this last couple of years. Well, last year, I sort of think of 2020. I would certainly suggest finding a way to meditate that works for you. So it doesn't have to be sitting still if that's something awful, but it can be moments of meditation. So before you see your kids in the morning, before you drop them to school, before if you're a teacher, the kids come into the classroom, can you take a moment? Maybe it's the feeling your feet and feeling your breath. Can you take a moment and just place your hands over your heart and take some deep breaths in there and find a mantra that really speaks to you? And then you're showing up slightly different from that. The other side is if you're into yoga and the actual poses and flows, and there's so many different types of yoga, keep exploring and find the one that works for you. And that's just a great way of being in the body, which stops us being in our mind. Right? When we're in the body, we can really sort of enjoy this beautiful side stretch, say, and breathe into the ribs and let the ribs relax and find these openings in the body as a way of coming into you. Because we all know our intentions are good. Our intention is always to do our best or to project kindness and love. And then those thoughts and life can get in the way, right? So these mindful moments of just being fully present, can you, when you make your coffee in the morning, or when you're driving the car, or when you're, setting the room up, is there space for you to lean back slightly and just really feel parts of your body in that moment? I think that can just completely change outcomes of how we move forward. This dropping from our head to our feet, right? A surrender pose is any forward bend, from seated to, it doesn't have to be a big deal. I think sometimes we feel like we need an hour or so on our mat to get the whole thing. And there's 7 movements of the spine you can do, then that completes the whole practice. And you can do that from the moment you sit up in bed. You can do that at your desk, side stretches, forward bends, a twist, a back bend, right? And those are sort of ways of, we can only prepare so much, and then and it's life in general, we just need to lean back. We need to surrender just a bit more. And find out how do you fill your cup, right? For the teachers and the parents there, what can you do that would really fill your cup? Because generally we tend to go straight into the doing and forget the being. And I think it's important to, while we're having our kids sort this stuff out, to even think for ourselves, like say maybe every day, you need 20 minutes before you can come back into a family or more, and take those times, sit in the car and play a guided meditation if that works for you, or some music, or close your eyes. There's these lovely things called yoga nidras, and it's like yogic sleep, but you're not really sleeping. And you can do that in your car, not driving. You can do that in a way of relaxing, of coming home and telling everybody, you know what, I just need 10, 15 minutes by myself. I'm going to take a shower and then I come back and I'm ready. Like, set those boundaries up, because your self-care is going to be so important based on everybody else around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you're worn down, it's really hard to then all of a sudden start trying to incorporate those things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When we're in a good headspace, which maybe we are a bit more at the moment from summer, can you, make the plan now, and not when you're already going, oh my gosh, I can't take on another thing. I'm so overwhelmed.
And in terms of the yoga, like, is it best to do that in the morning as well? Like you sort of mentioned meditation maybe in the morning. Does it matter, or?
You know what? I think it's got to really work for you. My kids obviously are bigger, so I'm not needed in the morning in the same way you are when your kids are younger. But to really just put some time aside, it could be on your lunch break, right? It could be that, it really works for you in the morning to get up 10 minutes earlier and just sit a minute, breathe, and sort of meditate. There's this great app, Insight Timer. It's free, and there's thousands of guided meditations on there, you know, so you don't have to do it alone. You can sort of get support. For more, I think morning and evening tend to work best for most people. But again, you know, your yoga practice, you could fit it in your classroom near your desk if you get 20 minutes, you know, or even less. You can, so that it becomes just part of your being, your way to be in the world. And maybe yoga's not it, but there's lots of yoga flows, there's yoga, gentle yoga, there's hot yoga, there's so many different kinds that, you know, to find your way. For me, it was being on my mat started to unwind me more to me, to really me, to true me. I was so up in my head, and so I thought I was pretty laid back, but I realized as I became more conscious that actually I was pretty wound up. I was pretty anxious. And I was projecting that everywhere from a way of feeling like, oh, she's so chilled. And no, I wasn't actually. The truth was I wasn't. And so having that awareness and seeing what supports you. And for me, being on the mat and learning breath work and learning some yoga philosophy too, about how I can incorporate that in my day, that's what changed for me. So I guess I'm a big proponent of that.
And how long did that take? Like, was it something that you were practicing daily and then you sort of kind of had that realization and some of those changes, or was it a while in the making?
A while. I think a while in the making. I had, I think my kids were maybe 5 and 7, maybe, a friend who I knew was just starting yoga classes. And I had dabbled a little before and nothing great. I just always knew I felt better afterwards, you know? And so that sort of keeps you coming back a little bit. And then it was, I would say, a good 6 years. We met once a week. And I didn't realize at the time, in fact, I didn't even like yoga. I hated sitting still. I hated being with myself, you know, as things come up. But it was the taking the yoga off the mat and into my day, so that when I'm cooking, say, or when I'm cleaning something, or when I'm, I don't know, doing any household things, I would realize how tense I would even do them, how tense I'd hold my jaw, my shoulders, my fingers. You know, like when I'm driving, like, why are my shoulders up by my ears? I'm not even stressed. I'm not even in a hurry, you know? And it was those awarenesses that started. And then that certainly started to show up in my parenting and in having the ability to be more present. It's an ongoing process, but I know when I look into my kids' eyes when they're talking, or a good friend's eyes when they're talking, and I'm really there, I'm not thinking about anything else at that moment. That is glorious. That is presence. That is being mindful. And that is, you know, really listening and seeing, because we can listen, but we can also start thinking about what we're going to say ourselves, right? Or we can be listening and thinking, oh my gosh, look, you haven't had a shower for a while, right? Yeah. And so how about we listen and really fully see them in the light of love, and that they do not need fixing. They are just exactly as they should be. And then coming from that place when we parent.
No, that sounds great. Because, yeah, I can totally identify with that as a parent, you're always kind of like, oh, you need to do this, or you should be doing, or what have you. But yeah, I like that idea of everyone is as good as they are. I wrote a book. I'd love for you to check it out. Pendulum by S.E. German is available now. Pendulum is a heartwarming story that follows a young boy who experiences mental health challenges like anxiety, OCD and depression, ADHD and tics following an infection. It turns out he has a little-known disorder called PANDAS. The book follows the young boy as he struggles with his health issues as well as regular middle grade issues, and it can act as a wonderful catalyst between you and your children to talk about mental health issues and other things that are going on in their life. Pendulum is available online through Amazon worldwide, Barnes & Noble, the Friesen Press bookstore, and a number of other online retailers worldwide. And you can check out Chapter 1, the audio version of Pendulum, for free on the Learning to Slay the Beast podcast in episode 64. I hope you enjoy Pendulum by S.E. German, and let me know what you think.
So you mentioned, in terms of some certain poses, you mentioned 7 movements of the spine. So you said side bend, a forward, a twist, back bend. What are the others? I'm just curious. I've never heard of this.
Okay. So it's the 7 in that you would do a side stretch on both sides. So that's 2. So let's go through them. So the first one is elongation, is being as tall as you can, like so that the crown of your head is right over your pelvis there, and you're just feeling nice and long, nice and tall. So you can do that from standing seated, right? You can do it from lying down. So that's one. The second would be a twist over to maybe your right, and then a twist over towards your left. A side stretch over towards one side, and then the other side. A forward bend is your number 6. And back bends, be gentle with yourself with a back bend, especially if it's new for you, and keep your chin tucked in, and just really think about lifting your heart up. That's already giving you a shape of a back bend.
Okay.
That would be your 7 movements. Yeah. And the more we can fit those in throughout the day, I have felt them for myself and for my clients, lots of changes happen. It's kind of your body saying, oh, right, okay, I'll let that go right away. Oh, okay, I didn't realize I was holding it there, and then you're able to go, right, now I'm ready to deal with life, to deal with people.
Yeah, and I would think from, the perspective that a lot of us are sitting in front of screens a lot right now, that these would be really, feeling really great.
Yeah, I totally can do it from your desk.
Perfect. So one of the other things I was thinking a bit about is I've noticed a lot more teachers are trying to incorporate some mindfulness or movement into the day. I think they're really starting to see that there's such a benefit to the kids in breaking up the day and getting rid of some of that energy that you're mentioning. So I just wondered if you had any advice for teachers that are maybe just starting to think about incorporating movement or meditation into their curriculum in order to kind of assist different types of learners in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have taught this actually in a few schools. They were adding yoga into the curriculum and we were super excited, but then COVID.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But absolutely. I think it is this awareness that we do not know, and teachers are amazing. So they already have this awareness, but to bring it to light that we do not know sort of what energy or what each little person or big person is bringing into the room with them, right? So we, as we start at 9 o'clock or whatever we start, we've done here in Canada, right? You've done Canada. And then, when you go straight into teaching mode, maybe nobody's even there yet, right? Their mind's not there yet. They're still in what's happened to come to school. They're tired. Maybe they didn't eat breakfast yet, lots of reasons. So I think the more we can incorporate the start of our day, sort of what we were talking about in our home life, with a form of meditation. And a meditation can be that you say, for 2 minutes, we're going to play a piece of music and we're all just going to sit here. You can close your eyes, you can rest your head on the desk. Very little rules, right? It's just like we're going to start from that place. And then I've always loved this idea to do with positive affirmations, which can also be the mantras, right? But to have this concept, this affirmation, today's going to be a great day because, and you could start that every single morning that children write their first little piece of writing about that, or they speak it out depending, how you want to do it. So you're setting an intention into the classroom. I think also the other side is transitions. Transitions can be so hard, right? From one subject to the next. From you've been outside to play and now you have to come in and we have this expectation you're going to come and just sit. And for many people, we're not yet, Balancing poses are brilliant for those kind of transitions. And that can be as simple as tree pose. It can be stalk pose for kids. It can be warrior 3. lots of different variations. Those can all be looked up as a way of when we're in balance, we tend to have to be right here, right now. When we're in a balancing pose, it's really tricky to do if you're in your past or in your future, right? And to allow, I love your idea of the quiet corner. You know, I think some teachers have tried to incorporate that too, in a little space where, whoa, when you're feeling a little out of your emotions and your emotions are strong, maybe have a little seat over there for a moment, and it can be the meditation corner. I think that's super important, you know, and sometimes the energy just has to come out. You have to find other ways. They're not ready to transition to sit and to listen, and to sort of find the techniques that would work to help with that. And those can be that you could do sun breath, which is just inhaling your arms out to the side and then exhaling them all the way back down. So you bring them up overhead and then back down, you know, to incorporate, okay, everybody, we're going to do 5 sun breaths. You've all gone out of control. You get them to do that nice and slow, you know, or slowing it down anyway. Some kids will go really fast. And then let's start. So it's just a great way to bring in breath, meditation, mindfulness in ways that would kind of be fun, right? It doesn't have to be so serious, especially with the younger kids, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny. Yeah, I find, you know, as my son's got older, he more gravitates to like a complex pose. Like it's sort of like a, you know, he feels strong in something like a crow, compared to when they were little, and yeah, they maybe want like kind of an easier sort of fun motion. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you know, get them involved in sort of saying, okay, which is our pose for the week? You know, you could have that, and just, you can talk about the benefits. But for me, a lot of it is we get a bit scared of it because we think it has to be a certain way and on your mat. And there's a lot of tradition, and I honor all the traditions. It's not that. It's just like, how can we make it really start to be in our everyday life? And we don't all have mats and hour and a halves to give to that, you know. So rather than do none, let's do a little bit.
Yeah, I like that, making it kind of accessible and just something that you can dive right into and make work. Because you're right, kids definitely, they have a much shorter time focus, right? So yeah, they're not going to give an hour and a half.
No, to anything.
Yeah. No, that's great. Great advice. So I'm just wondering, before we wrap up, if there's any additional advice either regarding back to school or kind of anything else that you want to mention to listeners.
I think the key is this acceptance that this is, you know, this is life. And then we sort of keep, I for myself often think, but when it gets better, this is how it will be. And when it gets nicer, or right now, when it gets open, or when we don't have to wear a mask, or whatever it is, we're always on the next thing. Yeah. So I think if we can settle into this is life, and then when you can bring yourself into this moment, all is well. All is well in this moment. Like as I sit here talking to you, when I bring myself fully in my body and my breath, all is well. It's not the future. It's not the past. It's right here, right now. That would be, the more we can bring ourselves to right here, right now, I think we have a better, more fulfilled life.
Absolutely. That sounds like great advice. So I'm sure listeners are very interested to find out more about you. What are the best ways to find out more, either social media, online?
Yeah, thank you. So Instagram is more where I'm have been hanging out more recently. And that's under parenting_success_coach. I am on Facebook, and I have a website, Parenting Success Coach. Those would probably be the easiest places to find me. And I think those would be the two ones. I have a book coming out very shortly, so if you can hang out over on, it's actually already, it's in my inbox. It's got to actually be uploaded, and it's called Parent from This Place: How Yoga Changed the Way I Parent.
So will that be available on your website, or?
Yeah, very soon. Very soon it shall all be on there.
That sounds great. I'm very interested to see about that. So thank you so much, Anja, for your time today. I think this is really going to help parents as they're trying to transition their children and themselves in this back to school time. And you're right, it is a different year for a lot of people, even than last year. So I think it's a great amount of information for them to have in their back pocket in terms of
wonderful.
some of this breath work. That's great. So again, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, Sarah. What a great conversation.
Are you interested in having a published author speak in your classroom or at your community event? I'd be interested in speaking about my new novel, Pendulum by S.E. German, the writing process, mental health, pandas, pans, podcasting, and more. Contact me at reallifeprojectco@gmail.com for both in-person and online bookings. Thank you so much to Anja Simmons for joining us today in our Back to School series. I think we got so many amazing tips around breath work, from the volcano to sun breathing to feeling our feet to dropping into our breath as well. I think all of these tools are really practical for our kids and also for ourselves. I loved her focus on building in yoga, which is still something that